So our mutual friend raved about you, and I love that guy. Dave is just
Dave.
absolutely
Yeah.
the man. And
Yeah.
how do you know Dave?
Well, he helped write the book proposal for Snowball System, and then we landed a great
Ah,
agent, and then a great publisher, and it's just had an enormous impact on our business. So, in fact, I like the book proposal process so much. I actually hired Dave as like a personal editor.
uh-huh.
So he and I would hammer out a chapter like seriously like 10, 12, 15 iterations. Then we'd give it to the Hachette editor, and then she would give us feedback. We do 5 or 6 more rounds. So I think the
Wow.
reason the book's won a ton of awards is just like the sheer effort that we put into it and his expertise too.
Yeah, well, he's a
Yeah.
phenomenal writer and editor. And actually, that's exactly how I connected with him. So he did our book proposal as
Yeah.
well. And we just got our deal and now going through that process. And I'm on chapter 2 right now. And
Woo!
yeah, it's wild.
What's the topic?
So the book is called Unleashed.
Yeah.
And essentially, it's a personalized roadmap to fulfillment. It goes through every area of life. We created an assessment, and it's kind of like something akin to Myers Briggs or StrengthsFinder meets What color is your parachute? Something
Yeah, I
in that
like it.
direction. So, people buy the book, they get a code to the online assessment. It took us 4.5 years just to create that assessment.
I believe it.
Yeah, it was wild. And then, so the book is sort of the what now? You take an assessment, you take any sort of personality quiz, and you're left wondering, well, what to do with that information. So that's what the book aims to address. Let's look at relationships, let's look at focus. There's a personalized path to each one of these things based on your elements, as we call them. So that's the book.
I like it, dude. So if I can help in any way or take a look at it, write a blurb or whatever, you just let me know.
Thank you so
Promote it.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much in a state of like this is going to be hard work, and I'm
Oh
like
yeah.
sleeves rolled up, ready for it. I've worked with so many authors in the past, and finally doing my own. And everybody says like making a baby.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so I'm ready for it. I appreciate that very much,
You
and
know,
let
I
me know
actually
as well.
I actually tracked this might be helpful for you, especially where you're at. I actually tracked my hours and in the very various components of the project, all the way from
Hmm.
book proposal all the way through marketing and launch day and all that. And if it's helpful, I'll shoot you a little video that breaks it down. And one thing like I
Mm.
didn't expect was I think I'll have to go back and look at the numbers, but I think I spent as much time on the marketing side of it as I did the writing the book side of it.
Really?
And a lot of
Mm.
people totally underestimate that. Like
Yes.
you've already got websites and platforms and all that stuff. But even so, there's this book launch angle to it.
Right.
Because I had those things too, but I'm happy to share that. It's helpful
That
for
would
planning,
be
like how much
awesome.
I ended up doing a lot of nights and weekends because I didn't know how long it would take, and nobody had numbers like this. And our agent Lisa Demona, she's like, nobody's ever tracked this. I don't know what to tell you, so I tracked it. So happy to share that if you want.
Much appreciated. I will
Yeah.
definitely take you up on that. I love frameworks, tools, anything that can guide the process for me makes a big difference. I'm very much intentional with my planning and how I structure my days. So
Me too.
I would love that. It'd be pure chaos without it, with the amount of stuff I'm trying to accomplish. I'm curious, what was the most effective thing for you in terms of marketing so far? Like what effort was the 80/20?
I think giving away digital assets. We did all kinds of things, everything from the book's called Snowball System. So we had a snowball squad, like a street team, and
Yes.
lots of things worked. And of course, that old marketing mantra, we know half our marketing works. We don't know which half.
Mm-hmm.
So some of
Mm-hmm.
this isn't measurable, but some of it is. But I really think downloading, having time limited, very valuable, you get X digitally if you buy Y
Mm,
copies kind of stuff. I mean, that's just where it's at. That's James
got it.
Clear probably wrote the
Yeah.
playbook on that, and he
Yeah.
crushed it. And I think if I for book number 2, I'll go heavier on the digital and less on everything else.
Okay. That's awesome. Wonderful. It's funny, Gary Vee's launching his next book right now, and he's doing something very similar, but in the and he, as you may have seen, has his own NFT project, and he's incentivizing people to buy 12 copies to receive a special digital asset. So he's very specific in that way as well, and it's all digital incentives, and I can see why people love
Yeah,
them.
automated,
Yeah,
everything else, right? You do it
scalable.
once, it
Yeah,
scales, right?
absolutely.
Bingo.
So speaking of generally deal making and getting yourself or your idea out there, where I wanted to start with you is obviously the area of your expertise, which
Yeah,
I find incredibly, incredibly fascinating. So here's where I sit in the overall a sort of world of how you might think. I'm one of those people that had a natural skill set for business development and sales. And sure, I've had training through the companies that I worked for before I ever became an entrepreneur. I worked at 3M and worked at Google. And before that, I just kind of did all kinds of other types of business development and sales and sort of more training on the go. But very limited, sort of formal training for these things. And very few people attempt to create a framework in particular for business development.
yeah,
You see this a lot for sales. You don't really see it for business development. So
yes,
I'm absolutely fascinated by it. I'm very much a people person. I think that a lot of it, people unfortunately have to sort of figure it out the hard way. And what you are obviously doing is taking these sort of elusive aspects to how we build relationship, how we deliver value, and making them tangible.
yeah.
So, can you walk me through at a high level, please, what the overall vision for everything you're doing is and how it works?
Yes, yes. So I think, Armand, what most people think of when they think of sales is like this: I've got stuff and I'm pushing it on you. Like we all see it from the other side, right? The left brain limbic system has this fight or flight mechanism that says, I either need to fight or I need to run. And when we feel we're being sold to, we want to run. It is this limbic system visceral reaction. And I think there's a good definition of sales that isn't that way, but that's what we've got in our head. In our world, business development is the complete opposite of that. It's painting a picture for what a better future for all involved, us, our partners, our colleagues, our clients, everybody we work with, and helping proactively and intentionally shaping and building that future so that people are better off because we're around. And it doesn't matter to me if they pay us for advice or if they don't pay us. I mean, of course, we'd rather have people pay us,
Hmm.
but I want to help people, and we teach people to help people when they're looking for a job, when they just need advice about how reorg their department, when they just need a joke and they need to laugh a little bit. Those are sort of
Hmm.
the unpaid ways we can help. But then in the paid ways we can help, we've got some deep expertise. And if we actually believe we're decent at it, we owe it to people to find them, to be helpful to them, to tell them about it, and to influence their world in the people around them so that they hire us for more, because the more they hire us for, the more we can help them. And every single thing we
Hmm.
teach is on that good side of business development. In every single step somebody needs, every single skill, every bit of science behind it, we've uncovered. And we just help them realize, how do you do that really efficiently?
Wow. This one piece, so much of what you said is just gold, but this one piece that you just mentioned, I've talked about as well. And I think it's one of the most, it's not even that it's underrated, it's that it's just not a very well known concept. That, yes, of course, I think we all have felt what you talked about when we are being sold to or we are selling somebody on something and they run or we run or we get kind of that like knot in the stomach and it just becomes defensive. Like
Yep.
immediately, I'm defensive. What do you want from me? What's your true intentions here? I thought we were just talking. So that definitely happens. And there's this simple concept of like, okay, just do more of like a take it or leave it approach. That'll make it a little bit more casual. And look, this is what I have to offer. But what you said, I think, is fundamentally a better approach. It's like this idea of a lot of people experience this sort of internal conflict where they know they have worked so hard to create a product or a service or whatever it might be. And when it's time to actually deliver it, they're very hesitant. There's a way to, quote, sell that is so authentic because it comes from this like inner part of your being where you're certain that you are helping another person by providing this thing of value. And that is such a, I mean, I know I'm trying to be very specific with my words for myself here because I kind of learn as I talk as well, but it's like it comes from a place of certainty, and it comes from a place of integrity with the self. And when we don't deliver what we know is good for others, we're kind of doing disservice to not just to ourselves but to them. And this is the nuance, and this is the thing I've told people before, and it helps people click and go like, yeah, I guess it would be a disservice to not tell them about what I have. So how do you teach that? How do you uncover that? Because I don't hear people talking about this like ever.
Yeah, and I think that's why we have a thriving business because
Yeah.
there's all these sales books or methodologies or training. Again, we're both doing, if people are on audio or listening, we're doing air quotes every time we say sales, which I'm right there with you. I do the same thing. But there's lots of stuff out there about how to, almost like you get some guy to sign a guy or gal to sign a contract, at the big fancy steakhouse with a fancy Mont Blanc pen, and then, you run the other way and you never talk to him. And that's in air quotes, again, the selling side of it. That's the bad version. I've got this stuff and I want to push it on you. But we already defined the good version of it. And the way that we teach people to do it is to follow an approach. And I'll just give you 4 steps, Arman, that work like a charm. This is one of the very foundational things of the things that we teach in our training.
Yeah.
Listen and learn, create curiosity, build everything together, gain approval. Those are the 4. Listen and learn. When we start with the other side, step 1, and we just really thoughtfully ask some questions about what they're trying to accomplish. Now, we've got an expertise too. We can help shape this discussion, but if we can start with them, what the brain research shows, I know you love brain research,
Yeah.
Dr. Diana Tamir has found that in functional MRI testing, blood oxygenation levels in the brain, that when people are providing their own perspective, it lights up what scientists call the pleasure center of the brain. Like literally people are on a high when they're sharing their perspective. That's what happens in listen and learn. We have the ability to literally put them on a high as we learn about their goals. That's step 1. So we're actually putting, like if we've got PowerPoints or stuff that we've got, we're like putting that aside. We don't even care. Like that's not the point right now. We're looking to be helpful. The way we do that is by asking some great questions, finding out their priorities. Step 2, create curiosity. That's where we can start to turn the lens back on us. If there's ways we can be helpful unpaid, we want to create curiosity around those. Ways that are paid, great. Create curiosity around those. Curiosity turns out is an intrinsic motivator, so people like to experience it. They don't need a reward. Dr. Matthias Gruber has found that people remember more when they were curious. They're leaning in. They're in a heightened sense of awareness. So when we can tuck in our solutions underneath the words and the priorities we learned as somebody shares their perspective from step 1, we're golden. That's when we can move to step 3 of the 4, build everything together. Science there is awesome. It's called the IKEA effect, named after the Swedish retailer Michael Norton at Harvard. All-star team of researchers found a mental heuristic that found we buy into what we help create. So now if we can get some little incremental yeses on how we would actually solve things for them, how to do that, what a project would look like, how our solution would work, how we would stand up an outsourcing arrangement, whatever it is. But if we can start to let them fiddle with timing and the team that might be in it, or how we would word it, how we deploy it, things like that, those incremental yeses lead to the big yes at the end, which is gain approval. So those 4 steps in that order are incredibly powerful according to neuroscience. We listen and learn first, put them on a pedestal and learn their priorities and their words. We create curiosity about how we might help. Unpaid, paid, I don't care. We're just trying to find meaningful ways of follow-up, showing that we're trustworthy, all that. Build everything together. Step 3, and then gain approval should be ridiculously easy if we do those other things in front of it. So your thoughts? I mean, you've studied this stuff a ton, and you've got your own brain assessments and things. What are your thoughts about all that?
Well, but I have not applied it to this realm, and I find this stuff so fascinating, and that's such a brilliant framework because, um, a lot of this for me, like for example, the create curiosity one is the most interesting, because
Mm,
when you create curiosity, you're sort of in this like pre-sales process where your goal really is you're trying to illustrate. This is the way I interpret what you said, so please correct things that I
yeah.
may
Yeah.
use the wrong language for, because I know language is very critical here. But ultimately we're creating curiosity around the areas that we can provide value. So it's
Yes.
like, instead of me coming out and saying like, I can, oh great, I listened, and then that's where people kind of lose the plot. They kind of
Yeah.
listen, and then they immediately go, oh well, I have one of those, and I have someone who can help with this, and I have someone who can help with that, and then they get kind of right back into that mode of selling and being a little too direct. But your word choice is so unique here. Create curiosity. It's almost like we're dangling it. We're sort of teasing it, and we're saying, hey, you mentioned, the cryptocurrency space. I actually know, Anthony Pomp. Like, he's a friend of a friend of mine. Like, maybe he can help you out and find some world class people for that position that you mentioned is vacant right now. Like, I'd be happy to make that introduction. So, for me, I also look at that create curiosity sort of phase as, and I wonder where you inject this into your overall process. But for me, one of the things I've done without having a framework, again, I haven't had access to this framework before, is like just genuine authentic friendship building,
Yes.
relationship building, because like that's ultimately, and even so much of what you and I like, our relationship is just starting. So let's just use that as an example. Like, I'm sure through this conversation, I'm going to uncover so many ways that I can help you. You did it early on by saying, would you like access to that framework? So there's so many ways in which we can help each other in a genuine way that is creating curiosity and adding value. That's why, to me, the whole process becomes very simple, because it's not, there's no ulterior motives. It's very important to not have the ulterior motives, and that's where people get caught up, I've noticed, is that they go from that stage of like, okay, I'm following a framework, I'm supposed to listen, and then all of a sudden they go back into that scarcity mode. I need this deal, I need this relationship, I need this person to say yes. And they move away from that place of just wanting to provide value of who they know, what they can do, and they go back into what's in it for me. And that's where it falls apart.
Yes. Yes. Well, you asked for feedback. I wouldn't change a thing. I just a couple builds or nuancy things that the audience might love.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you said is spot on. So if we're in that listen and learn phase and we're asking some really thoughtful questions, we got a ton of them in our book, the Snowball System, in our training, Grow Big training. But all it takes is getting the person to share their personal perspective. So questions like, well, gosh, what's your number one priority as you move forward on X over the next 6 months? Share that with me. Maybe there's some ways I can help. So things that provide their personal perspective are the best kind of questions. As they're talking about those things, a great way to shift from listen and learn to create curiosity, our first to second step we talked about, is to use the phrase, would it be helpful if? And you just like you were just
Mm.
hinting you were standing right at this exact phrase, but we've tested a bunch of them. We
I
find, would
love
it be
that.
helpful if I blank gets a yes the most often? It's so much more powerful than do you want me to? A lot of times, if you had asked something like that, the people say, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. But would it be helpful if just softens the offer so much. So if I was working with a client, we work with a lot of consulting firms, law firms, lots of professional services, outsourcers like big healthcare companies. If I was working with somebody and they said they had a priority, I would be very specifically looking for ways that I can say, would it be helpful if I blank? And sometimes what's in the blank should be clearly an unpaid thing, because
Mm.
that builds so much trust. If I'm offering to do things at no charge and that'll take time, and an introduction to somebody, a sharing of a video, a metric somebody else used for that successful engagement, whatever. And then if I also can blend in some, well, gosh, would it be helpful if we discussed how we helped another client solve that exact thing? We had great results. they spent about X and got 10X out of it, or it only took 6 months, or, if I can just start to seed some curiosity, maybe through
Mm-hmm.
metrics or process steps or relationships, about how we might be able to talk about what we do, well, that's a good one too. And if we can have 3 or 4 would it be helpful ifs while we're asking a bunch of questions about their priorities, getting their priorities in their
Yeah.
words, then pretty soon they'll move to step 2. They'll go, hey, can you tell me about that introduction you
Mm.
mentioned? Sue sounds like somebody I'd love to meet. How would that be hard? Can we do that? Boom! Now we're talking about. Now we're
There's
creating
momentum
curiosity right
there.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they ask
Yeah.
for it. So does
Right.
that make sense? And
Oh, so much.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I love that phrase. Would it be helpful if? Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want help?
yeah. Right, right. When people read our book, sometimes they'll call on us and they'll use our own methodology on us.
Oh,
And we'll
nice.
go,
Nice.
I'll like say, oh wow, Sally, that was great and it felt good. Yes, I would love to meet so and so or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
the beauty of this approach is you can actually call it out while you're doing it. And the other
Mm.
side laughs and says, this feels great. Like, isn't that cool?
Wow.
Isn't that
So
cool?
different. It's so cool. So different than what we're used to. Night and day. And so are there any sort of stories that stand out to you, whether they're from your own organization or clients you've worked with who've utilized the framework where they were like surprised by, you know, the new deal flow or a specific deal? Does anything like that stand out to you? If you don't have one, it's okay, but I'm curious if
Oh,
there's any stories like that.
well, I have a million of them. We worked
Okay,
with
cool.
one, one comes to mind, and I'll tell an individual story, and then I'll share the group results. But we started with a major consulting firm, big brand, one of the top couple in the world. Everybody would know who they are, and we were working with our pilot group there. We had 9 partners and 9 pre-partners. They call them principals, but they're right before they make partner.
Hmm.
Some of the smartest people in the world, like literally best, MBA schools, scientists, PhDs, like really nice collegial people as well. So in that class, I'll tell you one incremental story and then wrap up with the whole group impact. But one person said in the middle of the class, "Wow, I just had a major unlock." He said, "I've been thinking about business development like a tennis match. Like if I send something to somebody or we have one meeting, there's an outreach from me, I can only respond when they reach out back." And he goes, "I just realized it's not that. I need to be continuously, proactively being helpful to everybody in my ecosystem, especially the top,
Hmm.
the biggest impact folks." That was just one insight across 18 people in
Hmm.
6-month process. But it was insight after insight after insight about how this is about being proactive. It's about being
Hmm.
authentic, a word you used before. I wrote down, I love that. It's about building trust. It's about creating curiosity for commercial ways we can help people, but doing it all along the way,
Yeah.
whether we get feedback or not. We're divorcing ourselves from the outcome. We
Hmm.
just keep being helpful. And if we do that, we get our egos out of the way, whether somebody replied to an email or not. Don't worry about that. We divorce
Wow.
ourselves from the outcome and we keep being helpful. The results happen. And in that group, 18 people, half of which weren't even partner yet, so they didn't have commercial goals. They brought in over $25 million in a 7-month period that they
Wow.
specifically attributed to the training. So it's the culmination of all these individual insights and revelations that happen that in a very short time can just be game changing from a results perspective.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So divorcing yourself from the outcome. Why? What do you think that really does to the whole
Well, man,
process? I think that's a huge key one. It really stands out to me.
it does me too. And I think in the end, Armand, like many times we're our own worst enemy.
Mm.
We meet somebody that could be valuable through a reference, or we met at a conference or on a Zoom happy hour or whatever. Somehow we meet somebody and we know that we can be helpful to them. We know that, wow, they could be a big client of ours. That's how we might think of it, right? And maybe we send one outreach. They don't reply back. We quit. Maybe we try a second
Hmm.
time 3 months later. We quit. But that's not the right approach. The right approach is to continuously add value. the old sales way, we're doing air quotes again, like we were doing before, is like
Hmm.
the follow up in one direct way through one medium. I'll send you an email offering introductory meeting with a person at our company. And then if I don't get that, I'll follow up on that exact email thread. Hey,
Yeah.
checking to see if you got my email. And like 20 steps down the line, you're like, hey, checking up to see if you got my
Yeah.
email about my email, about my email, about my email.
That's exactly
That,
right.
that's horrible, right? That's the
Yeah.
bad sales thing we've been air quoting. The good way is to try once and then try again and then try again. But maybe the first time's an email, maybe the second time's an offer to be introduced to somebody that relates to a conversation you had before. Maybe
Yeah.
the third time is we'll send them a physical book. Just say, hey, thought of you. Thought you'd really love this new one by my favorite author. It really relates back to that quick conversation we had 3 months ago. The fourth one,
Mm.
maybe we're going to interview them for some research we want to do. We're going to put them up on a pedestal, completely unrelated to the other things. But if we
Mm.
keep adding value over time, trust is built. We break down the barrier that we're trying to be pushy, salesy, if you will, air quotes. And we just can, if we continue to divorce ourselves from the outcome, and we do that with relationship after relationship, we'll have success. It's when
Yes.
we shut down because we just didn't get a response quite as fast as we wanted. It just doesn't work.
Mm. Well, I have to tell you, I could not agree with you more. After having done it the wrong way for many years to now, I believe doing it in a better way, I can tell you and tell everybody watching and listening that what you are talking about is one of the most important tools in my entire entrepreneurial business toolkit. Now, I really believe in the idea of adding value and, in particular, free work or free whatever it might be, some sort of advice, connection with nothing required in return. Now, when I first left my job and I had to figure out, because when you're doing business development at a job, you very process driven until
Yep.
you've had this kind of training.
Yeah.
Very process driven, and it's that kind of bad old sales style, right? You're just doing the follow-ups and trying to close deals. You have a quota, you got to hit the quota, and
Yep.
you don't realize that actually you can way exceed the quota by this counterintuitive approach until you have the opportunity to learn it. But I learned the hard way after I basically went off on my own, and I started attending these conferences, Mo, and being like, all right, well, I got to learn about digital marketing. I got to learn about the internet. I got to learn about blogging, vlogging, podcasting. I'm going to go to all these conferences and connect with people. A couple times, more than a couple times, I found myself at a dinner or standing somewhere, and then all of a sudden, a famous, influential type person is all of a sudden introduced to me. And then here's young, naive, inexperienced Armand. And what does he do? And what does everybody do, by the way? And people do it to me all the time. They go, okay, this person has this, this, and this that is of value to me, and I want that. So they have an outcome that they are extremely married to.
Yeah.
So I would sit there and meet people and go like, I remember the very first one that I really messed up. It was like a guy. I had a one of my first projects that I ever did as an entrepreneur was I created a course on email productivity and efficiency and saving time.
Yeah.
And there was this guy who was a productivity guru who could be an affiliate. Some people know what that means, like a referral partner for my
Yeah.
course. All I wanted was for him to promote my course. That's what I wanted. I'm like, oh my God, that'll make me, six figures alone just on him promoting it. My approach was so bad and so hungry and just so, I mean, it was like being on a really bad date. Like and the guy or the girl is trying to close you like
Yeah.
immediately and take you home. I was like, "Can I get your number?" And he just looked at me and was like, "For what? Like I don't know you." And I remember just in that moment, like still being a little too naive to realize, I was like, "Oh, man, we'll just follow up. We'll help each other out." And he's like, "But how are you going to help me? Like you don't even know me. You don't know what I need." I had not done any listening. I had not been curious. I was all me, me, me.
Yeah.
And so fast forward now, after having been embarrassed and learned the hard way, some of my best friends are some of the most influential people in the world, and I've never made a dollar off them. I've never asked them for a thing, not a thing. And I continue to just pour value into their lives, send them books, help them out with copywriting,
There
look
you
at their
go.
business plans. And these are people that if I had met, 10 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, I got to get, so and so to promote me, to put me on his podcast, to do whatever. I couldn't agree more with that approach. And so it's patience. It's looking at life as a much longer game and I know this word is a bit of a platitude for sure, but in an abundant way. Knowing that, like, if I just show up and deliver and continue to stay curious and continue to kind of show them what I can do, it all works out. And long story short, I would not be where I am today if it were not for these relationships. I've never asked for anything, but guess what? They do things for me because there's this reciprocity, right? It's like most of the incredible success that I've had, this external worldly success, is due to being referred by these friends. Like, for example, to really make it clear for people, I'll give you one example. I was on the cover of Founder magazine, and then Founder asked me to do this course. The only reason that that happened is because Neil Patel, the marketing guru, told Nathan Chan, the CEO of Founder, that Arman is the absolute best at what he does. He's the person you should talk to. So then Nathan was like, all right, well, my work is done. That was like as vetted as I possibly can ever get from Neil Patel, saying this is the best copy marketer he's ever worked with. So cool, that's the guy. It skipped all the BS that we would have normally gone through. And the next thing you know, Nathan's like, I want to do this for you, this for you, this for you. So I share this story from my side because I could not agree more with your methodology and your approach. And I think it's brilliant because nobody's teaching this stuff.
Well, gosh, your story was so great, and it's so cool that we have these experiences where something didn't work, because that's where we really realized, like,
Yes.
okay, I gotta try, I gotta try something new. And like, just everything you said about proactively investing in other people and always giving first, reciprocity, all the things you talked about are spot on. And the thing we can add one thing to that. So
Please,
it's
always
okay
add.
with you. Yeah.
Oh, no, please.
Yeah. So here's the thing. What we find is there's two big ways to create demand. One is through relationships, and it is by being crazy about how you prioritize your time, who you invest in, who you go deep with, all like that ecosystem you've built. Like when your book is going to launch, you're going to have insane blurbs and people that want to promote it to others. You're not even going to have to ask, right? Because you've got this amazing high profile ecosystem of folks with big platforms, lots of influence, and just sharing that you're writing the book are going to make people want to help promote it. I've already offered, like, I want to help you because I like you, right? So that's creating sort of a relationship advantage, creating demand through relationships. There are times when it makes sense to speed things up. So say I'm a lawyer and I've got a list of 20 clients that I'm allowed to call on. Well, I've got this really finite universe that I can call on, and sort of this idea of just adding value and hoping things will happen. It might not move fast enough. We still want to do everything you and I talked about, but sometimes you need more of a direct line of sight.
Yes, yes.
So there's our new topic, and that's what we call creating demand through our expertise. So we can go, I'll describe something and then we'll go back and play through how it could have worked with that influencer you wanted to be able to. Okay. So when we want to have a little shorter line of sight to winning some work, we can create demand through our expertise. We call that our give to get method. So early stage relationships are fraught with lack of trust. Who are you? I don't know how you can help me. All the stuff you shared, right? That's what we're all thinking it.
Yeah.
We were fortunate that person actually shared it with you. A lot of times they go, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was direct. He was direct.
Yeah,
it was
right.
good
That's
for me.
good.
It was
It's
good.
good,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, he
Yeah.
could have given his number, but accidentally got one digit wrong, or
Yeah.
something like that. So when we want to use the give to get method, I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Robert Cialdini's six elements of influence. I would guess.
Great book. Wonderful book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. With your copywriting, all your expertise, I'm sure you would have known it. So the six things for our listeners, and watchers are likability, reciprocity, scarcity, authority, social proof, and commitment. Those 6 things influence our human mind as laid out by Dr. Robert Cialdini at Arizona State more than anything else. Well, the give to get method says, hey, if I can make an offer to someone, and if I can design the experience to be able to be helpful to them using my expertise, not generically helpful in any way, but in this case, specifically what I'm hired to do, I could do it in a way that hits all 6. And so it can look like this. Hey, Mr. Mrs. VIP, I noticed you're here at the conference, or a friend told me about you, whatever. I would love to earn the right to get to know you. And what I'm doing here, Arman, is, so sidebar, is I'm trying to be very, very transparent and authentic in the approach. So I'd like to earn the right to get to know you, whatever. I would like to offer a little bit of my expertise on my dime. Hour session, something that's time limited. It's not forever. It's not you're an unpaid intern for a summer, but some pre-work in like an hour session, something like that. And we can hit all 6 areas of influence with a give to get if we hit the first 2, which are real easy. Likability and reciprocity, the very fact that we're sort of offering our expertise and doing it on our dime, we're typically going to trigger those 2. Almost everybody gets that in a give to get. The next 2 are a little tougher. Scarcity and authority. We want to make an offer that truly doesn't exist everywhere. So most people shoot themselves on the foot on this one. They'll go, oh, it's no big deal if I reviewed all the copywriting on your website or whatever. Well, it is a big deal. So people want it less if we say it's not a big deal. So for scarcity, we want to say, if it's authentic, I've never offered this much before, but I'd really like to learn from you, and I'd be willing to do X, whatever the scarcity. With the authority, we're probably gonna trigger that because we're gonna show our depth of content, our goods, our what we know when we deliver whatever analysis, report, whatever we're gonna deliver. So those are our middle 2. The last 2 are key: social proof and commitment. With social proof, if there's other decision makers that should be there, we should ask for them to attend the readout, whatever it is. Maybe the person's CMO, their copywriter, their web designer, whatever it is. If I'm the lawyer, it would be the general counsel, the CFO, somebody like that. And then the last one, commitment. This is the key. Almost everybody misses it. If we give an hour, some analysis up front, and then we spend an hour with this VIP person we're trying to learn, this is our give to get session. What most people do is they want to talk really fast and almost like pack 3 or 4 hours of content in 1 hour.
Right.
But to do so, we remove our ability to shape the future. Commitment, the 6th of the 6 things. So we're way better off adding like 45 minutes of value in the 1 hour meeting, and then saying, hey, this would be at the beginning. Hey, I've got a lot to cover, but let's make sure we save 15 minutes at the end to talk about next steps. So if we pack 45 minutes of value, we can leave them wanting more, so to speak, add a ton of value in the process. They're elated by whatever we showed with our expertise. And we're there to figure out what's next, which hopefully is us getting hired or some type of affiliate relationship or whatever. So that was maybe too long-winded, Arman, but
it's so valuable. All of this is so valuable. So I'm curious, because where a lot of people stumble, I think we've all, had to, either we've learned this or we still are learning it, is that transition from I'm adding and giving and providing value to closing. This is where people panic and their whole personality and demeanor changes. What is the best way to do that in that conversation of 1 hour of free consulting, and then all of a sudden it's time and you're at the last 15 minutes. How do we transition in a way where we don't all of a sudden become overly eager or nervous or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 big tips, and the second tip sort of has some things to it. So there's some subpoints. The number 1 tip is we've got to be there in person or on video. We got to see each other. So some research out of Cornell and Western University, which is in Canada, found that a face-to-face ask was 34 times more likely to get a yes than an email ask. Not percent, but times. That's the difference between I got a 2 out of 100 chance email. I got a 68 out of 100 chance in person. or on face to face. So that's why we need to be there for the 15 minutes. So the number one thing is just bring it up while you're there. Leave some time, right? So that's thing one. Most people don't. They pack too much value. They're too nice. They want to think, oh, they'll call me if they're interested. No, it's too confusing. People don't know what to hire you for. So spend that first 45 minutes adding massive value, transition to next steps and say, what most of our clients do here is they actually hire us for a little assessment. It costs X, it delivers Y, it takes Z weeks to do. You may want to do it, you may not, but I can honestly and transparently, I can see that we're going to add at least 20X value if we do that kind of thing. What do you think? So you just make it really easy and clear. Make it easy and clear. That's thing one. Thing two, 4 steps to an incremental yes. Cover the high-level approach, cover the high-level timeline, cover the high-level team, and cover the high-level finances. And if we can get into a little discussion around at least the first couple of those in that 15 minutes at the end, the close at the end, the yes at the end is easy because those 4 incremental yeses get us there. What's the approach? Do we need high end? Can we do quick and dirty? That kind of stuff. Given that, what's the timeline? Given that, who's the team? Given that, what's the price? And if we can guide a client through those 4 questions, they're a lot of times they'll drag us to the close instead of us trying to be a nag. Helpful?
Right. So helpful. So another sticky area is price. And I don't know if you specifically talk about this in your work, but I'm curious, even if you have a personal take on it, is we're often all hesitant to, you have that desire, you want the deal. And if you're certain people, you're at a point where you're charging a lot.
Yep.
And at times, you're really not sure what the budget of that person is. And there's a weird sticking point where you know what you deserve. A lot of people are in this stage where they're like, they know what they deserve, but another client or another deal would be nice, but they kind of have an opportunity cost that they have to play with. So it's that sticky point where like they probably would discount it if only they knew what the other person was willing to pay, and so on and so forth. Do you have any advice and thoughts around just pricing and things like that in general?
Oh man, I do. I'll talk mindset and science on this one. We got a whole chapter on this, or like 3/4 of a chapter in the Snowball System. 7 mental heuristics we need to know that are in our clients' heads when it comes to talking about money, so that we actually talk about it in the right way. But mindset and science that we can cover here in this time. Mindset is, we talked about those 4 incremental yeses, the general approach, highbrow or quick and dirty, the timing, the team, and the terms or the money. From mindset perspective, we try to teach people, think about how you talk about your team. Think about how you talk about the process. Think about how easily you talk about the approach. Hey, can you do it this way? Can you do that? Well, no, we can't do this. We can do that. It's confident. It's calm. You know your stuff. You know that the work can be done in 6 weeks, but not 5. Things like that. And you just talk real calmly about it. We want to talk that calmly for the 4th yes, the money. So what's helpful for mindset is for people to think about how calmly and confidently would you talk about the timing and what can and can't be done? Just have that same demeanor when it comes to money. That's the mindset. On the science, we probably don't have time to go through all 7 mental heuristics. But the one that I think can be really helpful in this situation is to use a 3-option technique. So if you've done the analysis, you think you know what the client needs, maybe you're not totally sure, show them a good, better, best option. Where good is solid, like you're proud of it. It would work. It's not as good as better or best, but it would work. Then go to better, that everything in better is in good, but it costs a little more. And the value is noticeably higher per dollar. And then best is like, when you're at Quick Trip or your local like Five and Dime, and they've got that best value for the really big drink you can get,
Yes.
You do your math and you're like, man, it's only a few cents more to get like twice the volume. You want that kind of feeling with the best approach. And then by walking a client through a good, better, best, that can take some of the emotion out of it, because now you're just, now it's not this is the price and you're not confident.
The
Now
yes
it's
or
like, hey, here's
no.
three
Yeah.
things. Let's talk about it. I'd personally probably choose the middle option, but you might want this or that one, whatever it is to authentically talk about. And then you just get back, then you just start talking about the trade-offs. And
Hmm.
it makes it easier to talk about money when you've got three options than I think when there's one and it feels like you're going to get it or you're not.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. So another area where the other person, it's kind of similar to your email example, talking to the person over email versus talking to them face to face.
Yep.
People, when it comes to that point where the offer has been made, and they need or they believe that they need time, space to think, or really what they're doing is they're removing themselves from the face to face interaction because they know once they lose you, they can lose you. They can go dark. Do you recommend trying to, get that deposit, get the credit card, whatever it might be, like make the transaction happen in that conversation? Or is it a follow-up conversation, or what might it be? Because what I've often had, especially in the past, is I'll move to email, be like, here's the deck, here's the strategy plan, here's the options. And then they're like, great, okay, give me 2 days. And then hasta la vista, man. They're gone. Like, email follow up, hey, let's jump on a call to go through it again. And they're like, oh man, maybe next quarter,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, our mantra around it's a great question. All your questions are so good. Clearly, you've done this podcast thing a lot because I'm not a lot, and the questions aren't that great. So these are really great. So the mantra we use here is what we call ask for the advance. So what we don't say is ask for the business, and the reason we don't do that is it's very rare you'd actually ask for the business. That's the last step in sometimes 100 little interactions, a lot of very
Yeah.
small advances, if you will, but we can always ask for the advance. So if we get to the in this meeting we've been playing through, this 1 hour meeting where we did a little bit on our dime for 45 minutes, we're talking about next steps. It's clear they're interested, but maybe they're not sure which one of three options they want to go with. And let's say they want to convene with their team to see all that
Yeah.
is really that could happen, right? That it might not
Yeah.
always happen that way, but that's one. The advance we could ask for the next for the at the end of that call with about 5 minutes left. We don't want to go all the way to the time, so we want to have some time. We might say, "Hey, it sounds like you and Sue and JD want to get together to talk about this. That totally makes sense. Would it be helpful for us to schedule our next call? Like, how long will it take for all three of you to sort of get together?
Hmm.
And why don't we just get the next call in the books now? Because it'll take, you've seen it, it takes forever to email each other and figure out a time that works. Even if it's tentative, why don't we open up our Outlooks, pick our next call maybe in a week or two, and then we've got it on the books. We don't have anything to worry about. Well, boom, there's an
Yes.
advance we can ask for. So what we're teaching is always figure out what the next helpful thing is, ask for that. For the more important things, do it eyeball to eyeball, and then you've
Hmm.
always got the next step. If they say, let's not worry about that right now, that's okay too. Maybe they're not as interested as we thought. You can
Yeah.
follow up on email.
So true.
But if they're interested, they'll go, you know what, that's a great idea. How do you look new next Thursday? Susie's out on vacation the weekend. I'd love to have it by Friday. And it just gets the next step going all the time, no matter what it is when you're asking for the next step in the process.
Yeah, I've definitely experimented with that one. It's so valuable. Always kind of planning the next step is huge because otherwise you really do lose them. If you had a very big deal, a very important deal in front of you, or just an important opportunity, do you fly out for it? And I know there's pre-COVID, post-COVID type thinking around this, but do you tend to believe that it's important to be flesh to flesh, face to face, or is Zoom at this point for people in business development or sales good enough?
I think Zoom's good enough, and the time savings it gives you is immense.
Yeah, the
Um,
time savings is incredible. And I
yeah,
hear a lot of people are getting on their calendars where they didn't used to because a meeting
yeah,
might have been like a chunk of the day and they got to leave the office, go meet for lunch or whatever it might be. But now it's like you're just a time slot on somebody's calendar. It's a
yep,
bit of a trade off though, right, Mo? Because
yep,
it's like the constraint of the time on the calendar has worked against me in the sense that if we were in person and we were talking about some kind of deal, it's like we might have a drink or a dinner or whatever, and it might go longer than we had planned. And that's sometimes nice too. But it sounds like you really think for most cases this is good enough.
I do. And to your point, I think there are exceptions. There could be the type of client relationship that could make your whole career. And maybe
Mm.
there's a project that would start it off, and it's the perfect project for you. Boy, get on a plane. Go get a working session with whiteboards, get everybody vaccinated, hopefully, or a negative test right before, and like work it out for a half a day. When we're talking about really big kind of
Hmm.
engagements, that kind of thing can be really, really worth it. But I think in the old days, in pre-COVID, um, I used to be, gosh, I would hit diamond on Delta. I live in Atlanta, so I would hit diamond, which is their
Oh
highest
wow.
thing.
Yeah.
I'd hit it in July for the next year. So I would be like on a double diamond pace, flying around the world, working with clients,
Yeah.
live sessions. And I've only flown like 3 times in the last 18 months. And I think well, all of them were for family. So,
Yeah.
in our business has beat expectations every year since then. So
Hmm.
I think now at least my standard for getting on a plane is a much, much, much higher bar than it was before COVID started. And it's not even close.
Are you personally happier this way? Like just not flying around the world? Yeah.
Oh yeah. That friction of travel, man, it just
Yeah.
eats up your body, your brain, and all that. I think I tell my wife every night when I do my commute and I walk 10 feet that way to the main house. And I transition over about 3 seconds. I just tell every night I'm like, man, I'm glad I wasn't on a plane today. Is it
Did
same
you?
with you? Are you experiencing
Yeah,
that
it
the
is.
same?
But there's one like nuance there where I like to be around people, and
Yeah.
I need to get back in like some sort of office setting at least, just for my daily. But when it comes to flying around, I totally agree. There has to be huge. It's got to be really important. Otherwise, most of my travel has just been for fun. I've been working remotely for, a decade now already, so I'm very used to this. All of the companies that I've started and ran have been distributed remote working companies. So I'm already, kind of like adapted and ready for it. COVID just kind of accelerated this for all of us, which is great because now we get the technology and the tools that are
Yeah.
now speeding up as well, to really make it much easier for everybody. So I really do think it's great. And like I was saying, my brother's actually in business development sales at Twilio, and he's talking about his inability to get on people's calendars before and get a meeting in person. And now deal flow is up, meetings are up, close rate is up, everything has improved as a result of this. So I think there's overall it's much more of a net positive effect overall. So Mo, when it comes to kind of like you obviously have this incredible book, The Snowball Effect, which I will absolutely link to for people and get it in front of them. Beyond
And
that,
we'll say Snowball System, just in
oh, I'm
case
so
somebody just took
sorry.
a note. That's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm so sorry. I have it right in front of me too. I don't know why I said that.
It's all
Um,
right. It's all right.
so we'll link to it for everybody. I
Yeah.
highly recommend everybody checks it out. Beyond that, in what ways are you engaging with clients or looking to engage with people? What does that look like for you guys right now as an organization?
Yeah. So I'll talk about it corporately and individually. So corporately, we're delivering our programs every day all over the world. I had 50 people on a program earlier this morning, mostly North American and Europe because it was in the morning, and we'll hit the same organization and all over Asia Pac tonight at 6 o'clock my time, early tomorrow their time for Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, and things like that. We're kicking off a global program where one of the top professional service organizations in the world, we're helping them do client planning better, using all of our systems and tools and techniques. Super cool work. So our ability to engage on a global basis now is much better than it even was before.
Hmm.
All the friction of travel isn't there, all that cost savings. And we're doing our full group training with all clients all the time. Like it's busier now than it's ever been.
Hmm.
On an individual basis, if anybody wants to interact with us, we have about half a dozen gratis programs that are email based videos, worksheets, like really valuable training programs. I'd probably steer people to, based on our conversation today, to bdhabits.com. So B for
Okay.
business, D for development. bdhabits.com is an incredible course that teaches people the right business development habits. It covers some of the stuff we covered about here, but I
Mm-hmm.
think you and I went deeper on a few things that was really valuable. So it's aligned but broader, and it tells somebody exactly what they need to manage their opportunities, create the business they want, to manage their relationships, deepen the relationships that they want, and to manage themselves. So even if they're really busy, they stay on top of the growth skill set and don't just do the work. They also work on growing the business. So bdhabits.com would be a great resource for any individual that wants to dive into all this more.
Brilliant. You're so full of value, so many just absolute gems of information, and you're even giving out more digital value as well, which I expect nothing less. I really, really appreciate this. It's been awesome conversation, Mo. Thank you so
Well,
much.
it's Well, and I'm going to promote this to our audience too, Arman, because like usually when I'm on podcasts, we sort of talk about the same things over and
Yeah.
over. But your
Yeah.
questions were so unique that I think this is a new, little different perspective for our audience. So I can't
Thank
wait to
you.
promote this
Yeah,
as well. Yeah,
I try to relate it to, my own experience where I can, and kind of avoid some of the more cookie cutter questions that people ask on podcasts,
yeah,
and look at this in a more way where we just really did flow together and kind of have a conversation about this incredible valuable topic that you happen to be an expert in. So I love this stuff, and it just comes from that genuine place of actually enjoying it and loving, because I know it's life changing. It's life changing
yeah.
to the business owner. It's life changing to the individual, and it's like this stuff has helped me a lot. So I will make sure to include links to your socials and your website and everything in the show notes for people listening. Also, one other thing for people listening and watching, I want to give away one of the copies of your book.
Yeah.
So this is what we'll do. All you need to do is go leave a review for the podcast about this episode, telling people what you got, like what's the number one thing you got out of this episode with Mo, and I'll pick someone and we'll Amazon and book over to you. So just a little gift for people watching and listening. So thank you so much, Mo. I really appreciate your time.
You know what, Arman? I'll one up you and help you do the same thing. Let's not only send the book to them, but I will donate. And I'm doing this right off the cuff, live as we record this. So it's sort of fun for the listeners and the watchers. But I'll also donate to that same person a free invitation to our marquee training class. It's called Grow Big Training. It takes 3 days. It will teach every single skill somebody needs to be great at business development. Usually costs $4,060. They're done virtually. And why don't I gift that to you so you can gift to the person that you want?
Wow.
Cool?
Are you kidding me? That's life changing for somebody. So, if that's you and this stuff is up your alley and you think it would help you, I recommend writing a nice review so it gets my attention, and we'll pick you for the book and for the training. So yeah, Mo, that's incredible. That's incredible.
I'll be thrilled. And whoever gets chosen, I'll have a personal call with you. We'll like talk about getting ready for the training. Seriously, it'll teach every single skill you need to be great at growth. This is what we've rolled out to 20,000 high-end professionals all over the world, and we'll give it to you.
Phenomenal. A man of his true he walks the talk. I love it.
We try to drink our own champagne.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why drink sugary Kool-Aid when you can drink champagne?
That's right.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Thank you so much. That's a wrap.